We are going to be looking at kind of the concept of using SQL and when it's used, and then we're going to do some practice and play about with some as well in kind of a bit of a playground. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Laura. I'm a data science consultant for Datacove. And I'm a former educator, and I've got a real passion for data storytelling. And today we're going to learn how to retrieve, filter, and do some summarizing data with SQL queries. I'll just quickly go through. Datacove are a data and analytics consultancy. We help people with their marketing and consumer analytics. We help with data visualization and reporting, maybe web applications. And we also, like today, do some training and build our community through Meetup to try and get people together to share their knowledge. So first of all, what is a database? Obviously, a lot of people have data and there's different ways that you can store that. So one of the ways is through a database. So databases take digital and organized collections of structured data or information. And we can use a database management system, a DBMS, to control how that data is organized, accessed, and updated. Yeah, hi there. Sorry, any questions, please do just ask, that's fine. So some traditional DBMSs, and I'm sure you've maybe heard some of these. So there's PostgreSQL, there's Oracle, the SQLite or MySQL, or I'm sure a lot of you possibly use some cloud servers, so the Microsoft or AWS, etc. So there's lots of things out there to kind of store your data, but primarily we're talking about structured and organized data. The data is organized in tables. You're probably quite familiar. It's going to be very similar to like a spreadsheet. And we're going to have rows going across, and those are our records, our entities. And then we've got columns, and that's our field or attributes. And most databases are relational, i.e. they're linked by a common key. Hi, those who've just joined us. My absolute apologies for the incorrect link, but welcome. I've only just started, so don't worry, and I've recorded it, so you can always catch up. But yes, so we're talking about databases and how we can use SQL within that. So if, for example, here we had a few different tables, we've got an employee table, we've got a jobs level table and a department table. Those are just tables of information. And we can see that they are organized, i.e. there is columns and there is rows. So it's just like basically a spreadsheet or any kind of data that you would see kind of organized as such. That's our structured data. So we've got our rows, our records going across, and then our columns, our attributes, our fields, whatever you want to call them, going down. When we say that they are linked by a common key, i.e. they are relational, what we just mean is if you look here, the employment table has some IDs that are unique for employees. And within that, you've got lots of information. So the person's got a name, what department ID they work for, and what job level they work for. Now, if you look for department ID and go to the department table, it also has an ID. Now, the ID here is linked to the department, so that is linked to this department ID, not the original one. And same for job level, it would be linked to the job level ID here. Okay, so that's what we mean by relational. I mean, basically what we're saying is databases are just a place that you can put lots of data in, keep it, have lots of individual tables and link them in. So it's a great place for businesses and organizations to collect and keep data. And this can be accessed and queried using code like SQL to search for that data, to collect that data, and more importantly, to manipulate it, read it, and get it the information that we need from that data. So hi, welcome. If you're late, don't worry. Apologies, we were a bit late as well. Wrong link. Okay. So that is kind of what a database is, but we're more interested today in how we actually read data from a database. And this is where SQL comes in. So what is SQL or SQL? A structured query language is used to access that data from the databases, and it's
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this
and that's the
advice.
basis. Oh, and that's the basis of most data analytics and reporting.
Okay.
Okay, there's a lot of people that use SQL because it's one of the most common. So it's really nice to use and very accessible to interact with databases. So it's the language to talk to the databases to get to the data. SQL is what we call a declarative language. So unlike other languages, whether it be Python or R, SQL, we kind of declare what we want and we can then get it from that. And there's a bit of a set order for SQL that we're going to be looking at today. And don't worry, if you've never used SQL before or you're kind of not sure, we'll go from the beginning and kind of work our way up. But we start with the operation, and this is kind of the basics from. The very first thing you've got to say to SQL is, I want to select either all the columns or just specific columns that you want, and then from table. Okay, so we're talking to the database itself, and we're saying, I would like some data. So here's the columns I would like, or please can I have all if you use the little asterisks here. And then you say from which table, and you give it the table name. So basically, as long as you can do that, you've now used SQL. Select columns from table. That is the very basis of SQL, and we're going to practice that in a little bit. We can obviously add a few more conditionings or some aggregations into it as well. So if you want to take it a little bit further than that very basic select and from, there's a few different things that we can do. For example, we can add a condition. So we can say, oh, where the rows are greater than 5, or, where this column equals 6, or if it's a part of something. So we can actually add conditions onto it as well, which is really helpful because I'm sure there's a lot of data that is being held in databases, and sometimes it's not very efficient to pull it all. So if we are trying to get some insight from our data, we really want to just be targeting and pulling exactly the information that we want. Don't waste time by pulling everything. So SQL is really excellent that you can just pull exactly what you want to get the information that you need. So select it all from the table and where, and that's when you can filter, give it a condition. We can also group it. So that would be the next layer. You can group by one of the rows, and you can do aggregations based on that. So sum or total, something like that, or other ways. And then at the very end, it's what we call post-processing. So you can actually order it by a column alphabetically or numerically, or you can say, oh, let's just limit this to the top 20 results or anything. So this is just another way to sort or limit and gather the information that you want. As I say, SQL is really useful for pulling things, not whole data sets, because it has the capability of actually doing the analysis in it. So we try and be really specific about our queries. We call them our SQL queries. Right, so we're going to do a bit of a live demo. I'd love you to do this alongside me. So I wasn't able to share the data set. Today's technology is really having a go. But if you can Google data with dev on just online, you will see that pulls up. Let me just bring that. That pulls up a website that looks like this. So I'll just say it again, it's called Data with Dev. And when you Google that, it's the first one that pops up. So I just literally search Data with Dev, SQL Playground, or something like that. So if you want to do this alongside me, that would be fantastic. So Data with Dev, click on that. And we were hoping to upload our own existing database, but let's just choose something else. So I'm just going to choose this dogs and expenses, and we're just going to work with some other data. So when we get into here, just to kind of talk you through it, especially if you've never seen kind of this layout before, we've got a few things going on here. Hi there.
Again, I didn't.
If you've got a question, that's great. If not, if you wouldn't mind going on mute, please, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Turkish. Ah.
If I sneeze, what would you say to me if we were at home?
Oh, I'll stick you on mute. Okay, so hopefully you're all with me. So there's something down the left-hand side here, and if I zoom in a little bit. There we go. We've got the schema on the left-hand side. So that is kind of each of the tables. So there's 4 tables in this one here. We've got dog breed, dog location, dogs, and fact dogs annual expenses. And if you click into each table, they actually give you each of the columns. So that's what the schema is. It gives you the tables, and then within each of the tables, it gives you the column names and the data type that goes along with the columns. So we can see that it's got all this information. If I click on the next table, it's got all this information. If I click on dogs, date of birth, breed, location, etc., weight and height. And the last one, again, has dog ID, years of expense, amount, etc. So what we're going to do is you can take all of this and just delete it. That's fine. And we're going to practice some ourselves. So if we go over here, and my ISVA. Let's see if we can do it at the same time. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. The very first SQL query, remember I said we need to do select first. So if you can all do this one with me, that'd be lovely. If you've all had access to it. All I've done is gone to SQL Playground, and there was an option to use one of their, oh, someone's not getting access to the database. Okay, don't worry. If you just want to watch this, and then we'll try another way in a second, but let's just get the basics done, and hopefully some people will be able to access this. Okay, so first of all, we're just going to do a select. Unlike other codes, SQL likes to have its commands or its queries in capital letters. So that's kind of just the best practice. It'll work if you don't use that. But again, it's just the standard way of doing it. So I'm going to select the first table. We've got 4 tables here, or maybe I'm just going to select dogs. So I'm going to select, and I'm not sure yet. I have to kind of look at the data and start kind of exploring it to begin with. So I'm going to select all the columns. So we use an asterisk to say all. And it tried to jump in for me. And I'm going to select dogs. Okay. So I'm selecting all, and then I'm going into the new column. Oop. There we go. If you push Shift and Enter, that's how we get down. And then we have to say from. There we go. And you see, once we capitalize it, or you don't have to, but it's good, and then put a space, it actually turns blue, and that means that it's recognized as a function that it will then do. If I go down to the next one, I'm always going to finish with one of these. And then when you push play or a run SQL query, here we go. I've actually been able to pull, let's get that. I've actually been able to pull the data. So I pulled the table, and it shows you a few different rows. I think it only shows you 20 rows to begin with. And you can see that, oh, look, we've got some ID, got some date of birth, a type of dog breed, location number, the person ID, height, weight, and gender code. Okay, so hopefully, if you're doing this with me, you've been able to run your first SQL code and been able to see this. So that's really good. So well done if so. You've just done SQL. So we've selected all from dogs. We could even put a where condition in there. So if we go back and say where, now we've seen the table, we've explored it a little bit more. I'm going to say, do you know what? I would like where height. You just type in the column. And we're going to say is greater than 20. And again, if I run that, so I've got a smaller table now, but we will notice all the heights are over 20. So that's our condition. We can add some conditions in here. So again, we're not having to pull everything, but we can start doing some of that. So if you want to do it along with me, please use this SQL Playground, and we'll see how we get on with that. Okay, I'll just go back to look at a few of the other things. So we've done our select column name, that pulls the columns of data. We've done from our table. We've added a where condition. At this point, you don't have to, that's fine. And we end with our semicolon thing. So just some syntax. SQL keywords are not case sensitive, so select lowercase is the same as uppercase. But as I say, it's best practice and standard in all the kind of SQL languages to use uppercase. And then to complete a query, we end with the thing. If we did have some data, if you had some data that you want to analyze yourself, you could actually use this playground, upload your data there. It'll pull it for you, import it and finish it, and you'll be able to get it. So I got a different data set, but I want you to kind of take a few moments to explore what data you've got. So for example, you can view all your data just by doing select all from table. If you just want to select specific columns, well, let's try that. There we go. Sorry, Fatima, I don't, if it's able to access the link, but it's opening the data set when I click it. Do you have this section here? You want to kind of get into a query. If you click this, so if you're seeing something like this, you want to click the SQL here, and that should open the query. At the beginning, when we opened it, there was like loads of things on it. You can just delete all that and kind of just write the stuff in here. So we should have some data schema here. And then this is where we write our SQL code. And then down here is what we see our results of our SQL. Hopefully that works. So say we didn't want every single column. What if I just wanted ID? Because obviously we kind of need that one just to be able to see. Oh, okay, you can, dogs and expenses is not opening. Okay. If I just go back a little second, when you're on this page, I clicked this one here. So I had to actually click to download the dogs and expenses. So hopefully if you click that, it'll take you to this page, and then you've got access to all the data, it like automatically downloads it. I'm glad it's working for some people. Thank you, Maria. That's good. So if I go back to what I was working on, yeah, let's just have a play around. So instead of collecting it all, I've forgotten what all the things are. Let's run that. So if I run them all, I've got, so I'm just going to get ID, because that's always quite helpful. I'm going to go date of birth. So that way we can work out what age the dogs are. I don't have any information about breed yet. It's just numbers. So I wonder if some of the other, yeah, the other ones have breeds. So you might have to, it's possible to link tables together using SQL. So that's, I don't know if we'll have time today to do that, but we can join tables together on certain columns. And that's just how we merge data together. So we could look at the dog breed number and then go to the dog breed table and find out what breed that means. We'll see. I'm going to go for gender. Now you see when I start typing, oh, Sometimes it actually pops it up for you. So I'm just going to copy and paste that over. Gender code. There we go. And when I run that, do you see I've now got a table where my ID, I've only got ID, date of birth, and gender code. So again, as I say, don't pull everything because the databases will carry a lot of data, especially in some big companies. You will have possibly millions of rows of data, and you don't need everything. When you get really good at your SQL, you want to be able to just like narrow down exactly and filter down the data to look exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, we got some select, we got some from, I've put in a where. I'm actually going to put in another one, and we have to do that at the bottom because it's our kind of post processing. I'm going to limit this. So at the moment there's over 30,000 rows. I'm going to limit this to the top 10. So when I run that again, there we go. I've just got 10 rows that have been received, and I can look at the top 10. I might need to order it first if you wanted to see like the youngest or something like that. Okay, so hopefully we've all had a chance to kind of give that a go. That's like the most entry level that we can do with SQL, but it is SQL. You are using SQL to pull data, which is great. So let's have a little look and see if we can do something a little bit more helpful. So you've noticed I've already got a condition here. I went for height that was greater than 20. But what if I wanted to choose just the females, for example? So if I want to choose something, I can use an equal symbol instead of a greater than symbol. So I'm going to say gender code again. Thank you, Fatima. In SQL, Microsoft top is used instead of limit. Perfect. So I'm assuming that's top, and then you could use bottom or tail. So you could see the top or the bottom. Lovely, thank you. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to say gender code, and instead of giving it a conditional statement, I'm going to say where that equals. And then we've got to put it in quotations, what our value is. So I'm going to say female because that's what we've got here, F standing for female. And if I run that, ooh, no such column female. No, it isn't a column. You're quite right. It is a. Let's just see if we do it like that. No. Gender code. That should work. That's weird. Equals. Well, let's take away the limit just in case. It was definitely a capital, wasn't it? No, it doesn't like that. Okay, let's delete that for a second. Here's what we had. We had F and M under gender code. I'm not sure why that's not working. Let's choose something else. So where, let's say ID is equal to 195. So there we go. Okay, so it definitely works, goodness. Unfortunately for these SQL playgrounds, because they're free and online and they're not kind of ones that you sign up to, sometimes they don't work perfectly. But yeah, so you can either identify an exact thing, or you can use, so here we go, we can use kind of a gender or date of birth or ID or whatever we're looking for. Or if you wanted to look at greater than or less than, there's different ways of doing that. We can also bring in some and or logic, so some conditional logic as well, and we can do multiple different things. So say, for example, I looked at everything, and I'll take away this where for now. So I'm just selecting everything again, going back to here, and I would like to know where dog breed ID is equal to 1, and let's say height is greater than 10. Okay, so I'm selecting all the columns this time from the table of dogs, but this time I'm asking for 2 conditions, and I've asked for the first, there we go, this column here, dog breed ID, only to bring me places where each of the values equals 1, and, so it needs to be both conditional statements, that the height is greater than 10. So when I run that, there we go. Now I've got all my dog breeds are equal to 1. Instead of the 30,000 I had, I'm down to 16,000, and all the heights are over 10. I suppose, what if I did less than 10? Now I'm just curious to see tiny dogs. Oh, still quite a few. Oh, I've done the wrong thing, that's why. Less than, there we go. No rows, okay, so there's no super tiny dogs. What about less than 15? No, less than 20. There we go. So the smallest dogs are like 17. Okay. So it is possible, obviously you can do or as well, and that'll work. So you can do and or. Okay, please do ask any questions if you need. But yeah, what if we wanted to limit it to the top 10? So if I did put in a limit, but I wanted it in the order of the height. So I don't just want dogs that are under 20 and of a certain breed, and I limit it to 10. That's great and all, but actually I wanted the smallest dogs. I want the height in order from smallest to biggest. So I'm going to put in another condition, but I'm going to put it in before limit. Do you remember at the very beginning there was kind of 5 sections? Yeah, we can do order by ascending or descending. So it's because we're going from smallest to biggest, we're going to do ascending. So we're going to put in order by, and you just say the column that you want ordered. So I'm going to go for height here, and I'm just going to say ascending. So A, S, C is our ascending. So when I pop that in, there we go. The smallest dogs that I've got that are whatever breed that is, breed number 1, starting from the smallest. So it's going by smallest up to biggest. And there we go. It just seems to happen that all of our smallest dogs are all 16.5. Cool. Again, as I say, if I pop back to the beginning, even before that, there we go. We had to have operation, which is our pulling, selecting. And then we've got our from column, and then our condition where, and then any sort of grouping or post-processing. But the way we do it is order and then limits always last. Okay, so that's why we had to do the order before the final limit. Okay, I hope that is, we're all happy with that. So that was ordering. I'm going to kind of skip through. There's another thing called distinct. So if we go right back up to the very beginning, we actually wanted to see how many different breeds there were. So I would like, instead of everything, I would like to know the distinct. And then this column, dog breed ID. And that kind of does what it says on the tin. It just gives you all unique versions. So, and we probably want to order that by ascending. And there we go. Oh, I've got to put in the column first. So order by this column and make sure it's ascending. There we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there only is 10 rows. I haven't limited it, but there we go. If we wanted to do descending, there you go. Just so you can see it from a different order. So this is distinct. That just means unique. So anything you would like to see the unique, kind of to see what pops up within a certain column, we can use the select the distinct column, and that's how we get onto that one. So obviously we've just been like pulling data and not really doing anything with it. I mean, it's very helpful to pull the data, but what if you actually want to answer some questions? So there are ways to aggregate your functions within SQL that you can actually start doing some calculations, or you can answer some questions. And some of the most commonly used SQL aggregate functions are these ones here in front of us. So we've got min, obviously returns the smallest value within the selected column. We've got max, returns the largest. You can do count, so you can see how many number of rows are in that set. So whatever you simplify it down to, whatever you limit it to, it counts kind of the total of those rows. We can also sum, we can do a total sum of a numerical column, and we can do an average with an AVG, which returns the average value of a numerical column. Just as a side note, aggregate functions actually ignore null values, except count. Count just accepts how many rows you've got. So let's do that one. Flip those over again. Okay, so let's look at these together. So there's also another thing called an alias as well. So we'll have a little look. So previously I was just like selecting everything. Whereas what we can do is instead of select star, what we can do is select count star. And when you do that, it'll just give you the number of rows within that. So select count just gives you the number of rows within that. You still need to say where from, and you can put a condition if you like. Now, if instead of having just a column name, we can actually use an alias. So if your columns are like if your headers are quite like complicated, we can just put an alias or a letter substitute that would represent that. So we can say as total records. So instead of you going, oh, it's the count of every single thing, it'll come up as a new column and actually be called total records. So it's like you've given a new column and you've given it a new header. So when we say as, that's us asking for it as an alias. So here we go. I've selected a column name where I've asked it to do something, some aggregation, and I've given it an alias name as this. If I was to do an average, so let's say now we've got the count, but I wanted to know what the average outcome was. Again, apologies, a different data set, but I wanted to call that the claim rate because it was average of some numbers. So that would give me as a kind of a percent because it was in decimals. Or I can average the credit score and again, give it a new alias as average credit score. If I wanted to select a minimum, for example, you just type in select minimum of something as a credit score. And again, we can give it an alias so that it's very clear as a header what it means, and maximum could be the same as well. So let's try some of those, shall we? So I've got a few different things here. I'm now going to ask for, I'm getting rid of all of these actually. So I'm going to do count all. So I'm going to count all. I'm going to take away the limit just for now, and I'm going to run that. So there's 11 of them, but you see how it comes up as count all? If you were wanting to just copy and paste this into some report, that's not very helpful. So that's why we use the aliases. So as total number. And we have to kind of use total number of, actually we wanted dog breed, didn't we? So let's see, what was in our dog breed name. So select count of all. I'm not going to count it all. I'm going to select breed name as total number of breeds. So now when I run that, there we go. The alias literally just changes the title. So it just makes it much easier, because if you give that, oh, count asterisk, what does that mean? Oh, now we've got a column that tells us the total number of breeds. It's much easier to see and read. What if I also then wanted the sum of, I think height was in there. And we'll give that, well, run that, see, first of all, and see, no, it doesn't like it. Okay. just going to get rid of that for now. So select the sum of the height. No, it doesn't like that either. Was there not one that called height? Oh, okay. Height female or height male. Okay, let's try and do, yeah, height female, why not? So I'm selecting the sum of height female. Let's just copy and paste it so I get it correct. Height female median, there we go. And I want that as total sum of female height. There we go. So the alias just gives that to us, and now we've looked at kind of all the rows, they've summed them together. This is the total sum. I know you don't really need to know all the dogs added together, but it's just showing you an example of how we would sum it. Okay, I'm very conscious we are running out of time, so I'm just going to skip down to have a little chat about a bit of ethics. So, flip these around again. Okay. So obviously when you're pulling data, as I say, you might have access to an awful lot of data within your databases, and you've got to be quite careful. Sometimes you shouldn't see some things, but hopefully if that's the case, then you don't even have permissions towards stuff. But also it's just a case of be careful about using so much compute power. You know, don't over query things, whether that be sensitive stuff or whether that just be not pulling too much data. So good rule of thumb in SQL is, or in any data, is actually only access what you need. Okay, so only pull the things you want. That's why I said at the beginning, although it's nice to kind of build SQL up from the top and go select all from the table and then start adding wheres and conditions and filters and stuff, obviously with a limit of 3 or something just to see. It's great to kind of see what you're doing and have a look, but actually at the final thing, you want to limit it, and kind of bring it down to just what you need. So only access what you need. And then data quality matters. I mean, we didn't have a chance to look at nulls, but you can actually put where this column is not null. So that's quite helpful. And you can look at duplicates and errors. Obviously, you know within your own data, if your data is not great, your output's not going to be great. Your analysis is not going to be great. Obviously, we've got to be really careful about privacy. You know, our GDPR does require that any personal data needs to be processed lawfully, fairly and transparently. So be careful, don't pull data that you don't need to have access to. And if you do, that's why we usually use IDs instead of personal data. So when you're linking data sets, you probably want to exclude personal data, and it just avoids that. And then be careful to use select carefully. As I say, don't pull more identifying data than needed. So you can anonymize by selecting ID instead of names and addresses. And you can minimize by only selecting limit of 5 and stuff. Basically, just think critically. How could errors or misuse of data affect people's lives in SQL? But hopefully this has given you a kind of a very, very basic overview of kind of the benefits of SQL and how easy it is to access data from a database.